Hello and welcome back to Overthinking Fishing Lures. Today's topic, the almighty buzzbait. Stay tuned. So if you put me in a corner and you absolutely made me pick my favorite lure of all time, it would be the buzzbait. Mainly because I have confidence in it, because I've seen it work, I've watched other people have tremendous success with it, and I personally have caught most of my biggest fish on the buzzbait. So I'm a big fan of it. The buzzbait was developed in the 1960s, I believe around Illinois somewhere. It was commercially available in the 70s. So basically you think of all your prop baits, which there's new prop baits today that we use like the Whopper Plopper, but way back when there was devil horses and torpedoes and all kinds of stuff. And then you got your spinnerbait. So basically they take a spinnerbait and a prop bait and they put them together and it's the buzzbait. So I'm going to show you some different buzzbaits right now. So this is the buzzbait that I showed earlier. This one has a kind of a frog pattern here, frog colors. Has a painted blade, which I think is pretty cool. The buzzbait I caught the most fish on my entire life was kind of like those that had a painted chartreuse blade on it. I've never forgot that. It was extremely good. This has a trailer on it, and this is a goat. It's called the goat, G-O-A-T. And it can be pretty much whatever you want it to be, but it's got two little appendages there, which kind of look like the little frog kickers or something like that. So here's a buzzbait. Obviously, I think anyone watching this video knows how to use a buzzbait, but this is a sinking lure, so you have to keep it on the top. So you crank it, and it's gonna kind of, so say this is your water surface, it's gonna kind of go like this. Back up here, it's gonna kind of go like that. It's not horizontal like you might think, but the weight is gonna keep it down, and it's gonna propel as it goes like that. I'm gonna show you several different kinds of buzzbaits here. So I would call this just a standard buzzbait. You know, nothing spectacular. The body of the lure is the skirt. This particular design is pretty cool because if you notice, there's a bend right there at the head. It's going this way and then it bends that way. So when it's in the water, it's going to kind of have the hook end up a little higher in the water column than it would be. That's just your basic buzzbait. Of course, like I showed you before, you can put a trailer on there. Here is just a grub as a trailer. You know, you also could have the skirt and a frog. This is a zoom frog. You could use that as the trailer. Or you could just use the frog itself. This has become very popular in tournament fishing now. Is just the frog body. Don't even worry about the skirt. Of course, you could have a painted blade. You could have a silver blade. Most of them are silver. You could even have a gold blade. You could have a trailer hook, so that has an extra hook there. Extra trailer hook. Of course, you can fish these however you want. You could just have a paddle tail swim bait on there if you wanted. There's all kinds of strange designs. So look at this one. It's kind of an inline buzzbait. You know, it has the space here to put a soft plastic on the back, but the buzzbait is in line, and then it's kind of on a hinged swivel. So that'll give it a different action for sure. Here's another inline buzzbait that's not on a swivel, it's straight, but it has two blades. Of course, a common thing is a clacker. So as this spins, it'll hit that other piece of metal to cause a clacking commotion. You also can have blades with holes in them, the water to run through, cause a different sound. Could also have, you know, something like this. This is another hinged one, but it's not an inline, it's a more standard shape, though that blade does have, or that this bar here does have a curve in it. And then there's some really strange ones. This is supposed to look like a mouse, I guess, but it does buzz on the water, but it has a little trailer. And I've got a little worm here as like the mouse tail. And if you stop this, it'll float, and then this will be sticking straight down. Then when you kick it off again, of course, it buzzes again. So there's all kinds of different buzz baits. Let me show you a new buzz bait I've recently got that I think is pretty darn cool. So this is the Squelcher by Booyah. Now, this is designed to have a unique sound, kind of a squeaking metal sound. Now you also on a buzzbait can bend this down just a little bit so that as it turns, it clacks up against the bar, and this was set like that. Some things that make this unique, look at the size of the blade. So this is a big blade, right? Big blade. The overall size of this lure is not that much bigger, you know, than any other one, but the blade is bigger. Some of these the blade is much bigger. So the overall size, like this is actually a pretty small one here, but the overall size is not that much different in the length. So from the end of the hook to the beginning, it's about the same, but look at the difference in the blade sizes. And I have noticed that commotion on top of the water is really what draws them in. I have caught fish on very small buzz baits before, as I have caught them on torpedoes or anything else. But to me, the thing that makes the buzz bait different than any kind of prop bait or anything like that is the excess commotion. So I think this one with the large blade is gonna be really good. Also notice the head. The head, you see it? How flat it is? It's designed to plane the water better. So it's not going to as easily want to sink, it's going to want to get up to plane quicker. And then of course this one was designed to have a soft plastic. Try to do this here on camera. It has a little keeper hook for your soft plastic. So that's just a few buzz baits I wanted to show you. Okay, so let's overthink the buzz bait a little bit, shall we? First of all, what is this mimicking? Like what are we trying to get the fish to think that this is? Well, a lot of your topwater lures like Whopper Plopper, it looks like a fish. It literally has the paint scheme of a fish, and I guess it's meant to mimic a hurt fish or a dying fish on top of the water struggling. And that works, and that's fine. Like I said, I might even have, you know, something like a swim bait on a buzz bait. However, to me, this is not ideal. To me, the thing about a buzz bait is it seems like it's some type of frog on top water. So to me, a buzz bait should mimic a frog, or at least in my opinion. Therefore, I generally would want to go with frog colors. So I generally like your whites and your greens, or maybe a green pumpkin, something like that, kind of a froggish color. If you're in dark water conditions, of course, just straight black would also be fine. I've had more luck with a chartreuse top water buzzbait than I have anything else. Chartreuse, black and white seem to be the best. But I think it's mimicking a frog, right? So ideally, if you put on a trailer, you'd want a frog type of a trailer. So on this particular setup, you have the buzzbait. It already has the commotion, and there's that clacker, of course. But it also has the commotion of the trailer, because even if you fished this Zoom horny toad without the buzzbait, it would still have the commotion. So you're getting like double commotion. Is that a word? You're getting the legs kicking back here. That's going to cause some movement of the water plus the buzzbait. And of course, this is a black blade. So to me, this is a nighttime buzzbait because black will silhouette really well at night. So dark conditions, you know, super cloudy, maybe wind, maybe current, anything that's going to keep light from going down in the water. And especially if it's nighttime, something that silhouettes well is going to stand out. So black is a perfect one for nighttime or dark water conditions. Or if your water is just muddy, if it's just muddy water, fish are gonna have a hard time seeing it. So you might think, well, bright would show up, but no, in dark conditions, bright doesn't show up. Color really doesn't show up. You want a silhouette, okay? And once again, if it's nighttime or dark conditions and the fish are gonna have a hard time seeing it, a clacker, extra noise will also help them. So the vibration of the buzzbait, the extra noise of the clacker, and the dark silhouette of black would be perfect for nighttime. So this would be something great, I think, for dark water conditions or nighttime buzzbaiting. Of course, this one, it doesn't have the clacker. It doesn't have the painted black blade. It's just a silver blade. And it just has a white frog on here. It's more of a simple design. This would be better during the day. This would be something in brighter conditions. So maybe the sun's out. The sun's piercing into the water, okay? Maybe the water's a little bit more on the clear side and not so much on the dark side. This would be a better option, just that more natural looking white. Now, with spinnerbaits, whether the spinner's gold or silver or painted means, I think, a lot of difference. With a buzzbait, does it really? So I bought this gold spinner, a long time ago. And now that I've kind of changed my views on buzzbaits, I don't really think a gold spinner would mean anything. So the sun will reflect off of gold. It's brighter. It's a brighter reflection than it is off of silver. So like on a spinnerbait, if you want the most flash, you would go with gold over silver. Well, you're not really going for flash. I'm not saying it would hurt anything, but you're not really going for flash on a buzzbait. You already have the commotion of the water, and therefore, you're not needing that extra flash. And especially on the top of the water, it just doesn't seem to have the same effect. So having a bright, flashy blade on a buzzbait, to me, is unnecessary. It's not gonna hurt anything. So my ideal is a painted blade, but very few people offer that. You kind of have to look for that. It's much easier to manufacture a non-painted, just a silver or gold blade. Something else that I wouldn't recommend anymore on this particular one is this trailer hook. Now, some people swear by the trailer hooks. And if you're fishing in open lakes and there's not a whole lot to get snagged on, I could see the trailer hook being good, because the point of a trailer hook is it's going through the water, and then say the fish comes up and it nips at it, but it doesn't really just go all out, and maybe it only kind of grabs here, and normally you would miss it, but it hooks that trailer hook. But the thing that's cool about a buzzbait is you can go right over stuff. It's almost weedless. It's not weedless technically, but say there's a log here, and it's actually sticking out of the water, your buzzbait is just gonna hit this and go right over. Okay, as long as you keep reeling and you don't stop. The buzzbait's kind of a weedless lure. So having that trailer hook, to me, is just gonna, the potential for that hook to turn and grab is higher. So I would say for creek fishing, river fishing, don't get any kind of trailer hook. And I would say I wouldn't worry too much about whether it's a gold or a silver blade. If you can find a painted blade, I think I would go with that. But if not, I wouldn't worry too much about it. So what about the body? Should you just keep the skirt? So is it better to have the skirt, a frog or something like that? Or is it better to have both? To have the skirt and the frog? Well, this really is just up to you. So a lot of people will tell you that the frog will help it plane up on top of the water and stay on top of the water. That might be true, but it also is harder to get it started because the frog adds a lot of weight. So as soon as you cast it out there and it hits the water, it's gonna wanna drop. And you have to be so quick to get it up on top. Perhaps the frog will help it plane better once you get it up there. But the cool thing about not having a trailer on there at all is it's lighter. So it's much easier as soon as it hits the water. You cast it out, and as soon as it hits the water, boy, you can just start going immediately. and there's no weight there to make it go down and up. So there's a trade-off there. You just have to decide, am I looking more for that lighter weight to stay on top quicker, or do I want to have it once it gets on top to be easier to plane? That's just up to you. I've had more luck with just the skirt, but I'm becoming more and more of a fan of having a trailer, but a small trailer. Because all I really want the trailer to do is to make it look more like the bait. So this to me looks, at least has tails, or not tails, but it at least has little feet back there that are gonna make it look more like a frog than not. Plus it gives, you know, this core more profile, more girth. And it also, if the fish bites on it, it's gonna actually get some soft, gooey part instead of just metal and silicone strands. So I think a little trailer like that with just a little bit of a twin tail design or twin legs is perfect. But you're not gonna go wrong. If this is the way you go, it's fine. If you go just the skirt, it's also fine. They all have their advantages and disadvantages. Even though I have this rigged up, I don't think this is a good idea. It's not that it won't catch fish. I'm sure it will. But if I was gonna put a swim bait trailer on any kind of lure, it would be a spinner bait, not a buzz bait. Because once again, with the spinner bait, I'm mimicking bait fish. With a buzz bait, I'm mimicking probably a frog. So like I said, most of the fish that I've caught with a buzz bait look something about like that. A chartreuse, a painted blade, and then a body. Now this particular one, I cut off the extra strands. I didn't want anything hanging. I wanted it to be a shorter profile. I would probably get something like this goat and put on here, maybe in a white or maybe in a chartreuse color. But I would just want a small little soft plastic with just little tails, but in the shape of a frog. The keys to catching fish on a buzz bait. First of all, you got to get it where the fish are at, which is obvious with any lure. But you know, if you just cast down the middle of the creek or the river and reel it in, it's possible with a buzz bait, actually, you could draw fish to it. I have done that. But let's just say, you know, you have the bank here and there's a dark spot there where there's some trees overhanging and there's a big log there. Oh my gosh, it's like there's always a fish there. There's always a bass there. And the thing about a buzzbait is how it hits the water. So if you just cast like this and the lure goes up and then it comes down and crashes into the water, it's gonna scare all the fish away. And then, especially if it lands right where you wanted to catch the fish, forget it. Now, like you might do okay if you're able to cast well over it, well past the area. It splashes, makes a big commotion. But then by the time you pull it through and get it to where you're going, you know, it's slowed down and there's not as much commotion. And now you're going past that log, then maybe you might catch the fish. But anytime that I make the cast I want, and as soon as the buzzbait hits the water, I start to reel and it just goes, and it is real quiet and a tap on the water. That's when the fish bite. That's when your percentage of catching a fish goes way up. Very rarely have I ever threw a buzzbait out there and made a big splash where I caught a fish. It was usually, I threw it out there and I timed it and I started to reel just when it hit the water. You know, that's when you're gonna catch the fish. Even though the point of this is to cause commotion on top water as it's going through, it's too much commotion when it hits the water. So if you're not having luck with the buzzbait, make sure that you're reeling it as soon as it touches the water and it just barely touches the water and moves, and it doesn't cause a lot of commotion. Also, if you don't reel fast enough and you throw it and it hits the water and it sinks down a foot and then you start to reel, it's just slowly coming up. It might get halfway back to you before it's ever got to the top. I'm not saying you can't catch a fish like that, but your odds are going to be extremely low. So as soon as that bait hits the water, it needs to be on top, okay? And if for some reason you do have an issue and it does sink, just reel it as fast as you can to get it on top. So keeping it on top and then having it gently touch and come towards you instead of splashing. That's the two biggest keys. And then don't overfish it. So with a buzzbait, it's not like a whopper plopper where you throw it out there and you can let it sit if you want, reel it, stop it, reel it, stop it. It doesn't float. It sinks immediately. So you have to throw it, reel it, throw it, reel it. And sometimes we get to going so fast, we go to the other extreme, and we just burn it across the top. That, in some cases, might work, but most of the time, you want this thing to go as slow as possible, but yet stay on the very top. So if it goes down at all, which once again, it's going to look like this when it's going through. If this part goes under the water at all, then you're going too slow. But you don't want to go any faster than you absolutely have to, just as fast to keep it on the very top. And then with the buzzbait, you don't have any options on your retrieve. Except to go too fast. You basically are just going to go slow and steady on the top and reel as fast as you have to keep it on the top. But like I said, buzzbaits are a fish killer. They are dynamite. They draw fish out when nothing else will. Now, they're not always the best. It seems to me like summer and fall are great for buzzbaits. Early in the spring, not so much. It seems like fish have to get past that spawn. The weather has to get warmer, and the fish have to get kind of up in those rivers and creeks before the buzzbait or the topwater in general really starts to work. But you get into summer, and then the later in the fall that you get, the better and better that it possibly gets, especially when leaves start falling on top of the water. It just seems like it's perfect, like prime time for a buzzbait. But all summer long usually is good for a buzzbait. So when you're thinking about a buzzbait, just to recap, think of it as a frog lure. So your colors should match frog colors. If you have a trailer, don't get a fish trailer. Don't get a paddle tail or a grub trailer. Get a frog-ish trailer, something that has two legs in the back. Think about how you want to present it. I think since you're already on top water, you're already causing a commotion, you don't need a reflection from the sun on that blade to do anything. So I would say a painted blade is just going to look more natural. So like on this one here, the painted blade looks like it's part of the animal, part of the fish. Part of the frog. So a painted blade to me would work better. It would also silhouette better. So even though the fish can see the commotion, with a painted blade, they can see an object too. It just silhouettes better. Personally, I think less is more. I like them without the clacker. I don't think it needs the clacker. I do think it needs a large blade. Not that this whole thing needs to be large. This, to me, is the perfect buzzbait right here. In case you're wondering what it is, it's the Booyah Squelcher. I think it's pretty cool. You got the big blade, going to cause the commotion, but yet the overall profile is not much longer than a normal buzzbait. By the way, this wire here is super thick and stout, because once you catch a few fish, this is going to start to bend up and you're going to have to straighten it up. So a stout wire is awesome. Having a big blade is awesome. You don't want a trailer hook. You don't want a clacker, in my opinion. You do want this kind of flat head to get it to plane better. And then more than likely you are going to have a little trailer. So having that little trailer keeper right there is perfect. It's the right colors. You know, it has that froggish colors. A bright frog, you know. The only thing that would make it better is if the blade was chartreuse, but you can't get it in that. But that's almost the perfect buzzbait. And you could fish it just like this without any kind of trailer. But I think a little trailer would be perfect for that. And fishing it like that without that trailer hook, you can just run over logs. You can just run over, as long as you keep it moving, and as long as you don't let this thing turn like this and hook stuff, you can just pull it right over stuff. So you can get it right back in the middle of cover, logs, brush, and pull it right through as long as you're careful, and man, you can pull out some awesome fish. So I think a buzzbait is my personal favorite, and I think it can be one of the greatest topwater lures ever designed. Until next time, take care.